Marcus Chun stared at the rejection letter displayed on his tablet screen, the words blurring together as his eyes watered with frustration. Position filled by a more qualified candidate. The same phrase he'd seen 47 times in the past 3 months. At 28 years old, he held the dubious honor of being the most unemployed human on New Terra Colony. The irony wasn't lost on him that he sat in the unemployment office of humanity's most successful off-world settlement, surrounded by gleaming towers that stretched toward the artificial sky of the Dome City. Through the massive transparent aluminum windows, he could see cargo ships from a dozen different species loading and unloading goods at the spaceport. The Galactic Trade Federation had made New Terra a hub of interstellar commerce, and yet Marcus couldn't even get hired to sweep floors. Next, called the clerk, a bored-looking woman whose augmented reality contact lenses flickered with data streams. Marcus shuffled forward, his worn shoes squeaking against the polished floor. Marcus Chun, unemployment registration number 47291, he said, sliding his identification card across the desk. The clerk barely glanced at him. Still looking for work, I see. Any luck with the applications we sent you? All rejected, Marcus replied, trying to keep the bitterness out of his voice. The mining companies said I'm too weak. The shipping companies said I lack experience. The restaurants said I don't have the right cultural sensitivity to serve alien customers. She tapped her fingers against the holographic display. Well, there's one opening that just came in. It's unusual. Marcus leaned forward eagerly. I'll take anything. It's a maintenance position on Zephyria Station. Deep space assignment, 6-month minimum contract. Her expression suggested she wouldn't recommend it to her worst enemy. The pay is minimal, conditions are harsh, and the last 3 humans who took the job requested emergency evacuation within 2 weeks. What kind of maintenance? General custodial and repair work. The station houses representatives from the Galactic Council's most prestigious races. Valtharians, Corvani, Zephites, quantum collective drones. Very particular about their environment. Marcus had heard about these species. The Valtharians were 7-foot-tall crystalline beings who communicated through harmonic frequencies and considered most other races to be barely sentient. The Corvani were militant insectoids who viewed physical weakness as a moral failing. The Zephites were aquatic creatures who required specialized atmospheric conditions and had never shown interest in understanding non-aquatic life forms. And the Quantum Collective was a hive mind of energy beings who saw individual consciousness as a primitive concept. I'll take it, Marcus said without hesitation. The clerk raised an eyebrow. Mr. Chun, I have to advise you that this position has a 93% failure rate among human applicants. The station's environment is hostile to human physiology. The alien residents are generally contemptuous of human presence, and the work requirements are extensive. Does it pay enough to cover my debts? Barely, but yes. Then I'll take it. 2 hours later, Marcus found himself aboard a cramped transport shuttle with his few possessions stuffed into a single duffel bag. The pilot, a gruff Terran ex-military type named Jake Morrison, kept glancing at him through the rear-view monitor. You sure about this, kid? Morrison asked as they cleared New Terra's atmosphere. I've dropped off 12 maintenance workers at Zephyria in the past year. Only picked up 3 as scheduled. The others all called for emergency evacuation. What's so terrible about it? Marcus asked, watching the stars will pass through the small porthole. Morrison snorted. For starters, the station operates on a gravitational field 30% higher than Earth normal. The atmosphere is a methane-oxygen mix that smells like rotting eggs. The temperature varies between freezing and scorching depending on which section you're in. And that's before you deal with the residents. The aliens can't be that bad. Kid, these aren't your friendly neighborhood Centaurians or Altarians. These are the galactic elite. They're on that station because they're negotiating the most important trade agreements, territorial disputes, and diplomatic treaties in known space. They have zero patience for incompetence, and they consider humans to be somewhere between houseplants and vermin on the evolutionary scale. The shuttle began its final approach to Zephyria Station, and Marcus pressed his face to the porthole to get his first look at his new workplace. The station was enormous, a sprawling complex of interconnected modules that looked like a metallic spider web stretching across several kilometers of space. Docking bays dotted its surface like glowing eyes, and streams of traffic flowed to and from its many ports. "Impressive, isn't it?" Morrison said. "Costs more to build than most planetary defense systems. Houses about 300 of the galaxy's most important individuals, along with their staff, security, and support personnel. And somewhere in all that complexity, you're going to be the guy who keeps the toilets working." The docking procedure took nearly an hour, involving multiple security scans, identification verifications, and what Marcus assumed were biological contamination protocols. Finally, they were clear to enter the station's service bay, a dimly lit cavern filled with maintenance equipment and supply containers. Marcus gathered his belongings and followed Morrison down the shuttle's ramp. The gravity immediately pressed down on him like a heavy blanket, and the air tasted metallic and sharp in his lungs. The lighting was a harsh blue-white that made everything look slightly unreal. "Marcus Chun," a voice called from across the bay. Marcus turned to see a tall, thin man approaching them, his pale skin almost translucent under the artificial lights. "I'm Dr. Edmund Hartley, the station's human liaison. Welcome to Zephyria Station." Morrison clapped Marcus on the shoulder. "Good luck, kid. Try to last longer than the last guy." As the shuttle departed, Dr. Hartley led Marcus through a maze of corridors that seemed to stretch endlessly in every direction. The walls were made of some kind of adaptive material that shifted color and texture as they walked, responding to the presence of different life forms. "The station is divided into 12 major sections," Hartley explained as they walked. "Each section is customized for the environmental needs of its primary residents. You'll be responsible for maintaining common areas, service corridors, and any spaces that require human-compatible access." They passed a massive viewport that looked out onto space, and Marcus could see several alien vessels docked at the station's far end. One ship looked like it was made entirely of living coral, while another appeared to be constructed from pure energy held in geometric patterns. "The residents," Hartley continued, "are here for the Galactic Accord negotiations. These talks happen only once every 50 years and determine trade routes, territorial boundaries, and diplomatic relationships for the next half-century. The beings participating in these negotiations control the fate of billions of lives across hundreds of star systems." They stopped at a plain metal door marked with human script. "Maintenance personnel, authorized access only." "This is your quarters," Hartley said, handing Marcus a key card. "Your work assignments will be transmitted to your personal device each morning at 0600 station time. Meal periods are at 0800, 1300, and 1900 in the human section cafeteria. Any questions?" Marcus looked around the sterile corridor, already feeling the weight of isolation settling on his shoulders. "What happened to the last maintenance worker?" Hartley's expression darkened slightly. "Jonathan Martinez. Good man, actually. Lasted almost 2 months, which was a record. He was working in the Veltharian section when he accidentally disrupted one of their meditation chambers. The harmonic resonance was apparently painful to their entire delegation. They demanded his immediate removal from the station." "What did he do wrong?" "He breathed too loudly." Marcus felt his heart sink. "They can hear human breathing?" "The Veltharians can detect sound frequencies far beyond human perception. What we consider silence, they experience as cacophony." Martinez was trying to repair an air recycling unit when his respiratory pattern created interference with their harmonic communication. They filed a formal complaint with the Galactic Council, calling human presence on the station a sonic abomination. Inside his quarters, Marcus found a small but functional living space with a bed, desk, food preparation unit, and personal hygiene facilities. A large screen on the wall displayed station schematics, duty rosters, and what appeared to be an endless list of maintenance requests. He sat on the bed and activated his personal device, a ruggedized tablet that immediately filled with notifications. 17 work orders had already been assigned to him for the next day, ranging from atmospheric recycling malfunction in Section C to gravitational fluctuation in quantum collective meditation matrix. Marcus had no idea what half of these terms meant. He spent the evening reading through orientation materials, trying to understand the complex systems that kept the station functioning. The life support alone required managing atmosphere for 12 different species with radically different biological needs. The Corvani breathed a nitrogen-sulfur compound that was toxic to most carbon-based life. The Zephites required constant humidity levels that would drown air-breathing species. The quantum collective existed in a state of controlled electromagnetic flux that interfered with most electronic devices. Somehow, he was supposed to maintain equipment that served all of these contradictory requirements without offending anyone's cultural sensibilities, biological needs, or political status. The next morning, Marcus woke to the harsh buzz of his alarm and the immediate realization that every muscle in his body ached from the increased gravity. He struggled into his maintenance uniform, a bulky suit equipped with environmental controls, communication equipment, and what the instruction manual cheerfully described as emergency life support systems. His first assignment was in Section D, the Corvani residential area. According to his device, he needed to repair a malfunctioning cleaning unit that had been improperly maintained by previous human staff. The Corvani section was a maze of angular corridors with walls that seemed to be made of black metal and glass. The air was thick and humid, with a sulfurous smell that made Marcus's eyes water, even through his suit's filtration system. The lighting was dim red, designed for the Corvani's compound eyes. He found the cleaning unit in question, a complex machine that looked like a cross between a robot and a very angry insect. According to the diagnostic display, several of its primary circuits had failed, probably due to atmospheric corrosion. Marcus was halfway through disassembling the unit when he heard the clicking sound of approaching Corvani. He looked up to see 3 of the insectoid aliens standing at the corridor junction, their multiple eyes fixed on him with what he could only interpret as disapproval. Corvani stood about 6 feet tall on 4 powerful legs, with upper bodies that featured 4 arms ending in precise manipulator appendages. Their heads were elongated and featured large compound eyes that could track multiple targets simultaneously. They communicated through a combination of clicking sounds and pheromone releases that human technology could translate, but not replicate. Human maintenance worker, one of them said through the translation device mounted on Marcus's suit. You work with insufficient speed and precision. Marcus tried to respond politely. I'm sorry, I'm still learning the systems. I should have this fixed within the hour. The previous human worker made the same claim. The unit remained non-functional for 3 days. I'll do better, Marcus said, returning to his work. But the Corvani remained, watching his every move with their unblinking compound eyes. He could feel their disapproval radiating from them like heat from a furnace. The repair should have been straightforward, but the Corvani technology used principles that were completely alien to human engineering. Instead of circuits, they used biological neural networks. Instead of standard power sources, they employed chemical reactions that required precise pH balance. Marcus found himself improvising, using human tools to repair alien technology that operated on completely different principles. After 2 hours of painstaking work, he managed to get the cleaning unit operational again. The Corvani tested it themselves, running diagnostic routines that seemed to involve tasting the air and listening to frequencies Marcus couldn't hear. Acceptable, one of them finally announced. Improvement over previous human performance. Marcus felt a small surge of pride until the Corvani continued. However, your presence continues to contaminate our atmosphere composition. Human biological processes release chemical compounds that interfere with our pheromone communication. We request that future maintenance work be performed when our section is unoccupied. When would that be? Marcus asked. Between 0300 and 0315 hours station time. Marcus realized they were giving him a 15-minute window to perform all maintenance work in their section. It was physically impossible, but he nodded anyway. "I'll do my best." The rest of the day continued in similar fashion. In the Zephite section, he spent 3 hours trying to repair an aquatic filtration system while wearing a specialized breathing apparatus, only to be told that his crude mammalian movements were disturbing the water's harmonic flow. In the Valtharian section, he wasn't even allowed to enter. They communicated through harmonic frequencies that his presence disrupted, so he had to repair their equipment remotely using robotic tools. By the end of his first day, Marcus had completed exactly 3 of his 17 assigned tasks, and each one had resulted in formal complaints about his inadequacy. That evening, he sat in the human section cafeteria with Dr. Hartley, picking at a meal of reconstituted protein and synthesized vegetables. "Rough first day," Hartley asked sympathetically. "I don't understand how this station functions at all," Marcus admitted. "Every species has completely different requirements, and they all seem to hate having humans around. How am I supposed to maintain equipment for beings who consider my existence an insult?" Hartley sipped his coffee, which smelled like it had been recycled through the life support system several times. The previous maintenance workers all had the same problem. They tried to meet alien expectations instead of finding human solutions to alien problems. "What do you mean?" "Marcus, you're thinking like a human trying to be an alien. But what if you thought like a human trying to solve alien problems? These species are incredibly advanced, but they're also incredibly specialized. They've optimized themselves for efficiency, but that means they've lost adaptability." Marcus considered this. "You're saying they're too perfect?" "I'm saying they're too rigid. They can only function within very specific parameters. But humans? We're the opposite. We're generalists. We adapt, improvise, and make things work even when they shouldn't." That night, Marcus lay in his bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about what Hartley had said. Every species on the station was incredibly advanced in their own way, but they were also incredibly limited. The Corvani could only function in their precise atmospheric conditions. The Valtharians could only communicate through harmonic frequencies. The Zephites could only exist in their aquatic environment. But humans could function in all of these environments, even if they weren't optimized for any of them. Maybe that was the key. Maybe instead of trying to meet alien standards, he needed to find human solutions to alien problems. The next morning, Marcus approached his assignments with a different mindset. Instead of trying to repair the Corvani cleaning unit using their biological neural networks, he bypassed the organic components entirely and rigged a human-designed control system that achieved the same results through completely different means. When the Corvani discovered what he'd done, they were initially outraged. But when they realized the unit was functioning better than it had in months, their attitude shifted to curiosity. "This is not standard Corvani engineering," the lead technician observed. "No," Marcus agreed. "It's human engineering adapted to Corvani requirements." "Explain." Marcus found himself giving an impromptu lecture on human adaptability and improvisational engineering. The Corvani listened with growing interest, asking detailed questions about human problem-solving methodologies. By the end of the week, Marcus had developed a reputation among the alien residents, not as a competent alien technician, but as something entirely different, a human who could solve alien problems in ways that aliens couldn't. The Valtharians, who couldn't tolerate his presence, began sending him harmonic frequency recordings of their malfunctioning equipment. Marcus would analyze the sounds and devise repairs that could be implemented remotely. The Zephites started requesting his assistance with systems that required non-aquatic perspective. Even the Quantum Collective, who barely acknowledged individual consciousness, began consulting him about problems that required linear thinking processes. Marcus realized he wasn't becoming the galaxy's best maintenance worker. He was becoming something that had never existed before. A human who could interface between radically different alien technologies and find solutions that none of the individual species could achieve on their own. And that was when the real crisis began. 3 weeks into his assignment, Alarms began blaring throughout the station. Marcus was in the middle of repairing a quantum collective meditation matrix when an emergency announcement echoed through the corridors. All personnel report to designated emergency stations. The station is experiencing critical system failures across multiple sectors. This is not a drill. Marcus's personal device immediately filled with dozens of emergency work orders, but these weren't routine maintenance requests. These were crisis-level system failures that threatened the life support of the entire station. The atmospheric recycling system was failing in the Veltharian section. The gravitational generators were malfunctioning in the Corvani areas. The aquatic filtration systems were shutting down in the Zephite regions. And the electromagnetic flux controllers that maintained the quantum collective's existence were becoming dangerously unstable. Dr. Hartley's voice crackled over the communication system. "Marcus, we need you in the Central Command Center immediately. We're facing a station-wide emergency, and the alien technical teams can't coordinate their repair efforts. They're all working on their individual problems, but the failures are cascading across systems." Marcus ran through the corridors toward the command center, his mind racing. Each alien species was incredibly competent at maintaining their own technology, but they couldn't work together because their approaches were too different. The Corvani's biological engineering was incompatible with Veltharian harmonic systems. The Zephite's aquatic technology couldn't interface with quantum collective energy matrices. But Marcus had spent 3 weeks learning to translate between these different approaches. He developed workarounds and improvised solutions that bridged the gaps between incompatible systems. As he reached the command center, he realized that the galaxy's worst worker had suddenly become its most crucial figure. The fate of the most important diplomatic negotiations in galactic history now depended on an unemployed human who had never been good enough for any other job. The real crisis was just beginning. The command center was chaos. Marcus had never seen so many different species trying to communicate simultaneously and failing completely. Holographic displays showed system failures cascading throughout the station like a deadly digital plague. Red warning lights bathed everything in an apocalyptic glow, and the air itself seemed to vibrate with tension. Dr. Hartley grabbed Marcus by the arm the moment he entered. "Thank God you're here. We've got simultaneous critical failures in life support systems across all 12 sections. The alien technical teams are trying to solve their individual problems, but they can't coordinate because their technologies are fundamentally incompatible." Marcus looked around the command center and saw exactly what Hartley meant. The Corvani technicians were clustered around their bioneural diagnostic equipment, clicking frantically in their chemical-scented atmospheric bubble. The Veltharian engineers floated in their crystalline formation, generating harmonic frequencies that made his teeth ache. The Zephite specialists worked from within pressurized aquatic tanks, their tentacles manipulating controls that looked like living coral. And the quantum collective representatives existed as shifting patterns of pure energy, their thoughts visible as geometric light displays. None of them were talking to each other. They couldn't. Their communication methods were as incompatible as their technologies. "What exactly is failing?" Marcus asked, trying to make sense of the dozens of alarm displays. "Everything," replied Commander Sarah Chun, the station's human operations director. She was no relation to Marcus, but her presence gave him a small comfort in the alien environment. It started with a minor fluctuation in the central power core 3 hours ago. The quantum collective tried to stabilize it using their energy manipulation techniques, but that created electromagnetic interference that disrupted the Veltharian harmonic resonance chambers. Marcus nodded, beginning to understand the cascade. And when the Veltharians tried to re-establish their harmonic frequencies, they created sound waves that interfered with the Corvani biological neural networks, Commander Chun continued. The Corvani attempted to compensate by increasing their atmospheric chemical concentrations, which contaminated the air recycling system and poisoned the Zephite aquatic filtration. So each species' attempt to fix their own problem made everyone else's problems worse, Marcus realized. And now the failures are feeding back on each other. Exactly. And here's the worst part. The central computer that coordinates all these systems has been overwhelmed by contradictory repair commands. It's locked itself into a diagnostic loop and won't accept any new instructions. Marcus stared at the central display, showing the station's main computer core. It was a hybrid system designed to interface with all the different alien technologies, but now it was paralyzed by conflicting inputs. The Corvani were sending biological control signals. The Valtharians were transmitting harmonic commands. The Zephites were inputting aquatic pressure variables, and the Quantum Collective was attempting direct energy manipulation. The computer was trying to process all of these incompatible instruction sets simultaneously and failing. How long before we lose life support completely? Marcus asked. 6 hours, Dr. Hartley said grimly. Maybe less if the cascade accelerates. Marcus looked around the command center again, watching each alien species working desperately on their own problems while ignoring everyone else. The greatest minds in the galaxy, and they couldn't cooperate long enough to save their own lives. I need access to the central computer core, Marcus said. Commander, Chun raised an eyebrow. Marcus, that's the most sophisticated computer system in known space. It's designed by the combined technological expertise of 12 different species. What makes you think you can fix it when the best alien technicians can't? Because I'm not trying to fix it, Marcus replied. I'm trying to translate for it. 20 minutes later, Marcus found himself in the central computer core, a vast chamber filled with technology that defied every human understanding of engineering. Biological neural networks grew alongside crystalline harmonic processors. Quantum energy matrices interfaced with aquatic pressure systems. It was beautiful and terrifying and completely impossible. The core computer itself was a sphere about 10 feet in diameter, floating in the center of the chamber and surrounded by access ports designed for each species' unique interface methods. Streams of data flowed around it in visible light patterns, creating a light show that would have been mesmerizing if it weren't representing a countdown to disaster. Marcus approached the main human interface terminal, one of only 2 on the entire station. The screen was filled with error messages in a dozen different languages, and the system refused to accept any input commands. He sat down and began typing, but instead of trying to fix the underlying problems, he started writing translation protocols. He'd spent 3 weeks learning how each species' technology worked, how their engineering philosophies differed, and, most importantly, how to make them work together. The Corvani thought in terms of biological systems and chemical reactions. The Valtharians conceptualized everything as harmonic relationships and resonant frequencies. The Zephites approached problems through fluid dynamics and pressure equilibrium. The Quantum Collective viewed reality as energy states and probability matrices. But Marcus thought in terms of practical solutions and adaptive workarounds. He began writing code that would act as an interpreter between the different technological approaches. Instead of trying to force the computer to understand each alien command set, he created translation layers that would convert each species' inputs into a common language the computer could process. It was like building a universal translator for technologies instead of languages. The work was exhausting. Each alien technology operated on fundamentally different principles, and finding common ground required understanding not just how they worked, but how their creators thought about the universe itself. Marcus found himself diving deep into alien psychology, trying to comprehend worldviews that were utterly foreign to human experience. The Corvani saw existence as a web of biological relationships, where every component served a specific function in a larger organism. Their technology was literally alive, growing, and adapting like living tissue. When something broke, they didn't repair it so much as heal it. The Valtharians experienced reality as a symphony of interconnected vibrations. Their technology was based on creating perfect harmonic relationships between different elements. When something malfunctioned, it was because the harmony had been disrupted, and restoration required retuning the entire system. The Zephites understood the universe through fluid dynamics. Everything was pressure and flow, current and resistance. Their technology was like controlling ocean currents, guiding powerful forces along predetermined paths. Problems arose when the flow was blocked or misdirected. The quantum collective perceived existence as overlapping probability states and energy transformations. Their technology manipulated reality at the quantum level, collapsing probability waves into desired outcomes. Failures occurred when the probability matrices became unstable. Each approach was brilliant in its own way, but they were mutually incompatible, like trying to perform a symphony where each musician was playing from a different score in a different key. But Marcus wasn't trying to make them compatible. He was creating a conductor who could understand all four scores and coordinate the performance. As he worked, alerts continued to flood the command center. Atmospheric pressure in the Zephite sections was dropping to critical levels. Temperature regulation in the Corvani areas was failing as their biological systems went into emergency shutdown. The Veltharian harmonic chambers were becoming unstable, threatening to shatter the crystalline components of their technology. And the quantum collective's energy matrices were becoming increasingly chaotic, risking a cascade failure that could tear holes in space-time itself. Marcus's hands flew over the keyboard as he built interface after interface. A biological command interpreter that could translate Corvani chemical signals into digital commands. A harmonic resonance processor that could convert Veltharian frequency patterns into system instructions. A fluid dynamic calculator that could transform Zephite pressure variables into control parameters. A quantum probability engine that could translate collective energy manipulations into computer operations. Each translation layer was incredibly complex, requiring him to understand the deep mathematical principles underlying alien physics. But Marcus had always been good at one thing: figuring out how to make incompatible systems work together. It was the same skill that had helped him jury-rig broken equipment with spare parts, except now he was jury-rigging reality itself. 3 hours into the crisis, Marcus uploaded his first translation protocol to the central computer. Immediately, the cascading error messages stopped. The computer, no longer overwhelmed by contradictory inputs, began accepting commands from the Corvani technical team. In the Corvani section, atmospheric pressure stabilized as their biological life support systems came back online. The clicking and pheromone releases from their technical team shifted from panic to cautious relief. But the other 3 species were still locked out of the system. Marcus continued working, his vision blurring from exhaustion and the strain of processing alien mathematical concepts. The harmonic resonance processor was particularly challenging because Veltharian technology didn't just process sound waves. It processed the mathematical relationships between frequencies, creating technology that existed as much in acoustic space as in physical space. When he finally uploaded the Veltharian interface protocol, the results were immediate and spectacular. Throughout the station, crystalline surfaces began resonating in perfect harmony, creating a sound like celestial music. The Veltharian sections stabilized, their harmonic chambers returning to optimal resonance. But now Marcus faced the most challenging translation of all: the quantum collective's energy manipulation technology. The collective didn't think in terms of individual objects or discrete commands. They perceived reality as a continuous field of probability and energy, and their technology worked by directly manipulating quantum states. Translating their intentions into computer commands was like trying to translate poetry into mathematics. Marcus stared at the quantum interface protocols, his exhausted mind struggling to comprehend concepts that seemed to exist beyond the boundaries of normal physics. The quantum collective's representatives were patterns of pure energy that existed in multiple states simultaneously. Their commands weren't instructions so much as intentions that collapse probability waves into desired outcomes. How do you translate intention into code? As Marcus worked on the quantum translation protocols, he began to understand something profound about the crisis they were facing. Each species' technology was perfect for their own needs, but completely inflexible when it came to adapting to unexpected circumstances. The Corvani biological systems were incredibly efficient, but could only function within specific chemical parameters. The Voltharian harmonic technology was beautifully elegant, but required perfect acoustic conditions. The Zephite fluid dynamic systems were incredibly powerful, but needed precise pressure maintenance. The quantum collective's energy manipulation was nearly godlike, but required absolute stability in probability matrices. Each species had optimized themselves and their technology for perfection within their specialized domains. But perfection meant rigidity, and rigidity meant that when circumstances changed, they couldn't adapt. Humans, on the other hand, had never achieved perfection in any domain. They were mediocre at everything compared to specialized alien species. But that mediocrity came with incredible flexibility. Humans could function in almost any environment, adapt to almost any circumstances, and find solutions that worked even when they shouldn't. Marcus wasn't just translating between technologies. He was translating between different approaches to existence itself. With less than 2 hours before complete life support failure, Marcus uploaded the quantum translation protocols. The results were unlike anything that had ever happened on the station before. For the first time in galactic history, completely incompatible technologies began working together in perfect coordination. The Corvani biological systems provided adaptive organic responses. The Voltharian harmonic processors maintained perfect systemic resonance. The Zephite fluid dynamics systems managed pressure and flow throughout the station. And the quantum collective's energy manipulation fine-tuned reality itself to optimize performance. The central computer, no longer paralyzed by conflicting instructions, began coordinating repairs across all sections of the station simultaneously. Life support systems stabilized. Atmosphere pressure returned to normal. Temperature regulation resumed proper function. The cascade failure that had threatened to destroy the station was not just stopped, it was reversed. In the command center, alien representatives from all 4 species turned to stare at Marcus as he emerged from the computer core. For the first time since the crisis began, the emergency alarms fell silent. Dr. Hartley approached him with something like awe in his expression. "Marcus, what you just did, I don't think it's ever been done before. You made 4 incompatible technologies work together as a unified system." Marcus collapsed into a chair, his body and mind exhausted from hours of intensive work. "I just translated," he said weakly. Each species was trying to solve the problem using their own approach, but the problem required all 4 approaches working together. Commander Chin pulled up the station's system displays on the main screen. "Not only did you stop the cascade failure, but the station is now operating at 112% of normal efficiency. The coordination between systems is actually improving performance beyond design specifications." But as Marcus looked around the command center, he realized that solving the technical crisis was only the beginning. The alien representatives were staring at him with expressions he couldn't interpret. Some seemed curious, others appeared thoughtful, but a few looked distinctly uncomfortable. The Corvani delegation leader approached him, its compound eyes fixed on his face. "Human Marcus Chun," it said through the translation device. "Your actions have demonstrated capabilities that were not previously recorded in human species assessments. This requires evaluation." The Voltharian representative, a floating crystalline formation that communicated through harmonic frequencies, generated a complex sound pattern that the translator rendered as, "The human has exhibited technological integration abilities beyond documented parameters." This presents implications for galactic technological frameworks. The Zephite delegation, speaking from their pressurized aquatic environment, bubbled something that translated to, "Species revision protocols must be initiated. Human capabilities require classification upgrade." But it was the quantum collective's response that sent a chill down Marcus's spine. The energy beings formed a geometric pattern that pulsed with meaning. Individual consciousness demonstrating unprecedented cross-matrix integration potential. Probability assessments require fundamental recalculation. Marcus realized that in solving the station's crisis, he had created a much larger problem. For thousands of years, galactic civilization had been built on the assumption that each species had specific capabilities and limitations. Humans were classified as primitive, adaptable generalists suitable only for basic labor and simple tasks. But Marcus had just demonstrated that humans could do something that the most advanced species in the galaxy couldn't: integrate incompatible systems and make them work together. The implications were staggering. If humans could serve as technological interpreters between alien species, it would revolutionize galactic civilization. Trade routes, diplomatic relationships, territorial boundaries. Everything would change if species could truly cooperate instead of just coexisting. But it would also threaten the established order. The current galactic power structure was based on each species controlling their own technological domains. If humans could bridge those domains, it might shift the balance of power in ways that no one could predict. As Marcus sat in the command center, surrounded by alien beings who were reevaluating everything they thought they knew about his species, he realized that his journey from unemployed maintenance worker to galactic game-changer was far from over. The real challenges were just beginning, and they would be political, not technical. Dr. Hartley approached him quietly. "Marcus, I think you should know that everything that happened here today has been recorded and transmitted to the Galactic Council. Word of what you've accomplished is spreading throughout known space." "Is that good or bad?" Marcus asked. "I honestly don't know," Hartley replied. "But I have a feeling you're about to become the most famous human in the galaxy. And in galactic politics, fame can be as dangerous as it is valuable." Marcus looked at the alien representatives, who were now engaged in intense discussions among their own species. He couldn't understand their languages, but he could sense the tension in their communications. Plans were being made, strategies developed, decisions reached. And somehow, an unemployed maintenance worker from New Terra Colony was at the center of it all. The station's crisis was over, but Marcus's real test was about to begin. Marcus woke to the sound of his quarters communication system buzzing with an incoming priority message. After the exhausting events of the previous day, he'd hoped for a few hours of peaceful sleep, but apparently the galaxy had other plans. The message was from Commander Chun, marked with the highest level of urgency. "Report to Conference Chamber Alpha immediately. Formal diplomatic session convening. Your presence is required." Marcus dressed quickly and made his way through the station's corridors, noting that the atmosphere felt different somehow. The usual hum of routine operations had been replaced by an undercurrent of tension. Alien personnel moved with purpose through the hallways, their communications more urgent and secretive than usual. Conference Chamber Alpha was the station's most prestigious meeting space, designed to accommodate diplomatic sessions between species with radically different environmental needs. The chamber was divided into specialized sections for each delegation, with atmospheric barriers, gravitational adjusters, and acoustic dampers allowing incompatible life forms to share the same space. When Marcus entered, he found himself facing the most important gathering in galactic history. Representatives from not just the 4 species residing on Zephyria Station, but delegates from dozens of other civilizations throughout known space. Some attended in person, while others participated through holographic projection or specialized communication arrays. At the center of the chamber sat High Arbitrator Zethkar of the Galactic Council, a member of the ancient ethereal species that had overseen interstellar diplomacy for millennia. The ethereals were beings of pure thought who manifested as shifting geometric patterns of light, and Zethkar's presence commanded immediate respect from every species present. Human Marcus Chin. Zethkar's thoughts translated directly into Marcus's mind, bypassing the need for mechanical translation devices. "Your actions yesterday have created what your species might call a situation. Marcus found himself standing in the center of the chamber, surrounded by representatives from civilizations he'd only read about in history books. The hegemony of Cassera had sent their war masters, insectoid beings, in ceremonial battle armor. The Crystalline Confederacy was represented by living gemstone entities that sparkled with internal fire. The Bio-Collective had dispatched their hive queens, each controlling dozens of specialized drone bodies. Even the mysterious Shadow Dominion had sent an observer, though it appeared as little more than a distortion in space that hurt to look at directly. "I'm not sure I understand," Marcus said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I just fixed some broken equipment." A harmonic resonance filled the chamber as the Veltharian chief engineer responded. The translation came through as musical tones. The human demonstrates false modesty. The integration protocols created yesterday represent technological advancement beyond current galactic standards. The Corvani military advisor's pheromone release translated to, "More concerning is the strategic implication. If humans possess technology integration capabilities, previous intelligence assessments require complete revision." Marcus was beginning to understand. In galactic politics, technological capability determined everything: trade relationships, military alliances, territorial boundaries, even basic respect. Each species was classified according to their technological specializations, and those classifications had remained stable for thousands of years. But Marcus had done something that didn't fit any existing classification. He had demonstrated that humans could serve as technological intermediaries, bridging gaps between incompatible systems in ways that no other species could achieve. High Arbitrator Zethkar's geometric form pulsed with complex patterns. The Galactic Accord negotiations were convened to establish technological exchange protocols and territorial boundaries for the next 50 years. These agreements are based on current assessments of each species' capabilities and limitations. Commander Chin stepped forward from the human observation area. "With respect, High Arbitrator, I fail to see how one maintenance worker's achievements affect interstellar diplomacy." The response came from an unexpected source. Ambassador Veltar of the Quantum Collective, whose energy pattern flickered with what Marcus had learned to recognize as intense concentration. Human consciousness demonstrates unprecedented cross-matrix integration potential. Implications cascade through all probability assessments. A holographic projection activated in the center of the chamber, showing a three-dimensional map of known space. Thousands of star systems were connected by glowing lines representing trade routes, communication networks, and territorial boundaries. The complexity was overwhelming, but Marcus began to see the pattern underlying it all. Every connection in the galactic civilization was limited by technological compatibility. The Corvani could only trade with species that could interface with biological technology. The Veltharians could only communicate with civilizations that understood harmonic frequencies. The Zephites could only travel through routes that accommodated aquatic life support. The Quantum Collective could only interact with species that comprehended energy manipulation. These limitations had shaped galactic history for millennia. Wars have been fought over technological incompatibilities. Trade routes have been abandoned when species couldn't interface with each other's systems. Entire civilizations had remained isolated because their technology was too alien for others to understand. But if humans could serve as technological interpreters, everything would change. "I'm starting to understand," Marcus said slowly. "You're worried that humans could disrupt the established order." The chamber filled with various forms of alien communication as species confirmed his assessment. But it was Dr. Hartley who provided the clearest explanation. "Marcus, what you did yesterday wasn't just fix broken equipment. You created the first truly universal technological interface in galactic history. If humans can routinely bridge incompatible systems, it would enable cooperation between species that have never been able to work together before." The implications were staggering. Marcus tried to imagine trade routes that connected every star system regardless of technological differences. communication networks that span species barriers, collaborative projects that combine the best capabilities of every civilization. But he could also imagine the chaos such changes would create. Established trade monopolies would collapse. Military alliances based on technological dependencies would become obsolete. Economic systems built on compatibility limitations would be revolutionized. High Arbitrator Zeth Karr's pattern shifted to what Marcus had learned indicated deep contemplation. The human's demonstration has forced acceleration of decisions that were intended to develop over standard negotiation periods. The Galactic Council must now address unprecedented possibilities. Ambassador Crixtal of the hegemony of Cassara, a massive insectoid warrior whose translated voice carried overtones of barely controlled aggression, stepped forward. The Cassarian position is clear. If human capabilities represent military advantage potential, containment protocols must be implemented immediately. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Containment protocols? Commander Chen's expression darkened. They're talking about restricting human freedom of movement throughout known space. Essentially quarantining humanity to prevent us from disrupting established power structures. But not all the alien representatives supported the Cassarian position. The Crystalline Confederacy's ambassador Shardvel resonated with harmonic frequencies that translated as restriction of technological integration capabilities would represent significant opportunity loss. Collaborative advantage potential requires exploration, not limitation. The Bio-Collective's Hive Queen Nexera controlled 3 drone bodies simultaneously as she responded. Human integration abilities could optimize collective efficiency beyond current parameters. Symbiotic relationship development is recommended. Marcus realized he was witnessing something unprecedented. Alien civilizations actually debating the value of human capabilities instead of dismissing humanity as primitive. But the discussion was taking on ominous undertones as economic and political interests clashed with scientific curiosity. The Shadow Dominion's observer, represented by that disturbing distortion in space, communicated through methods that bypassed all translation systems and spoke directly to consciousness itself. Change creates opportunity. Opportunity creates advantage. Advantage redistributes power. Power redistribution requires careful management. High Arbitrator Zeth Karr pulsed with decision-making patterns. The immediate question before this assembly is not the long-term implications of human technological integration capabilities, but the specific situation of human Marcus Chun. His knowledge of yesterday's integration protocols represents sensitive information that affects galactic strategic balance. Marcus understood. He had become a walking repository of knowledge that could reshape galactic civilization. The translation protocols he'd created weren't just technical solutions. They were blueprints for a new form of interstellar cooperation that could benefit some species enormously while threatening others' established positions. What are my options? Marcus asked. The responses came from multiple species simultaneously, creating a cacophony of translated voices. The Corvani military advisor, protective custody under Cassarian security protocols. The Veltharian chief engineer, voluntary collaboration in expanded research programs. The Zephite trade representative, exclusive contract arrangements with commercial development rights. The Quantum Collective ambassador, integration into collective consciousness matrices for optimal knowledge preservation. Each offer sounded reasonable on the surface, but Marcus could see the reality beneath the diplomatic language. The Cassarians wanted to imprison him to prevent his knowledge from spreading. The Veltharians wanted to study him like a laboratory specimen. The Zephites wanted to own his abilities as proprietary technology. The Quantum Collective wanted to absorb his consciousness into their hive mind. None of them were offering him a choice about his own future. Commander Chun stepped forward again. Human Marcus Chun is a citizen of New Terra Colony, operating under Terran colonial authority. Any decisions regarding his status must respect human autonomous jurisdiction. The chamber filled with what Marcus was beginning to recognize as the alien equivalent of derisive laughter. The Caesarian ambassador's pheromones translated as, "Human territorial claims are irrelevant to galactic strategic considerations. Individual preferences cannot override collective security requirements." Marcus felt anger building in his chest. For his entire life, he'd been told he wasn't good enough, not smart enough, not skilled enough, not valuable enough. Now, suddenly, he was supposedly so valuable that the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy wanted to control his future without even asking his opinion. "Excuse me," Marcus said loudly, his voice carrying across the chamber's translation systems. "I appreciate everyone's interest in my capabilities, but I think there's something important that you're all missing." The various alien communications fell silent as attention focused on him. High Arbitrator Zethkar's geometric patterns shifted to indicate surprise that the human was asserting himself in a formal diplomatic session. "You're all talking about my abilities like I'm the only human who can do what I did yesterday," Marcus continued. "But I'm not special. I'm actually considered one of the least capable humans on my home colony. If I can create technological integration protocols, imagine what humanity's best engineers could accomplish." The silence in the chamber became absolute. Marcus could feel the weight of dozens of alien minds processing the implications of what he'd just revealed. He hadn't just demonstrated an unusual individual capability. He had revealed that humanity as a species possessed technological integration potential that far exceeded galactic estimates. Dr. Hartley's face had gone pale. "Marcus," he whispered urgently, "what are you doing?" "I'm changing the conversation," Marcus replied. "Instead of arguing about what to do with one human, maybe we should be talking about what galactic civilization could become if all our species learn to truly cooperate." The chamber erupted into alien communications as every delegation began urgent discussions among themselves. Marcus had just transformed a debate about containing one individual into a conversation about the future of galactic civilization itself. High Arbitrator Zethkar's patterns became more complex and rapid than Marcus had ever seen. Human Marcus Chun has introduced variables that require fundamental recalculation of negotiation parameters. This session will adjourn for emergency consultation among council members. As the various alien delegations began filing out of the chamber, each deep in their own species discussions, Marcus realized what he had done. He had escalated the situation from a diplomatic incident to a galactic crisis. Commander Chen approached him with an expression of mixed admiration and concern. "Marcus, I hope you realize what you've just started. You forced the Galactic Council to confront the possibility that humanity might be the most strategically important species in known space." "Good," Marcus replied. "I'm tired of being treated like I don't matter. Humans don't matter. Maybe it's time we started mattering." Dr. Hartley shook his head. "Marcus, you may have just declared independence for the entire human species without consulting anyone. The political implications of what you've done today will ripple through galactic civilization for decades." As they left the conference chamber, Marcus could see alien delegations engaged in intense discussions throughout the station's corridors. Emergency communications were being transmitted to home worlds across known space. Military advisors were consulting with political leaders. Trade representatives were calculating economic implications. Marcus Chun, the galaxy's worst worker, had just become the catalyst for the most significant political transformation in galactic history. But as he returned to his quarters, he couldn't shake the feeling that the really dangerous part was just beginning. He had challenged the established order of galactic civilization, and established orders rarely surrendered power without a fight. The question now wasn't whether humanity would be recognized as equals in galactic society. The question was whether humanity would survive the recognition. Marcus woke to the sound of weapons fire echoing through Zephyria Station's corridors. Emergency lighting bathed his quarters in pulsing red, and the station's alarm system was broadcasting warnings in a dozen alien languages. He rolled out of bed and grabbed his maintenance uniform, his mind racing to understand what was happening. His personal device was flooded with emergency messages, but one priority transmission from Commander Chen stood out: "Station under attack. Report to Emergency Command Center immediately. Bring all technological integration protocols." As Marcus ran through the corridors, he could see the evidence of conflict everywhere. Blast marks scarred the walls where energy weapons had struck. Several sections had been sealed off with emergency barriers. Through the transparent aluminum viewports, he could see the flashing lights of warships engaged in battle around the station. The Emergency Command Center was a fortified section deep within the station's core, designed to remain operational even under siege conditions. When Marcus arrived, he found it packed with human personnel and alien representatives from the species that remained neutral in whatever conflict was unfolding outside. Commander Chun looked exhausted and grim as she briefed him on the situation. 12 hours after your speech to the Galactic Council, everything went to hell. The Caesarian hegemony declared humans a strategic threat requiring immediate neutralization. They launched a preemptive strike on human colonies throughout this sector. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. They're attacking Earth? Earth is safe for now. It's too far away and too well defended. But New Terra Colony, Proxima Station, and 7 other human settlements are under siege. The Caesarians claim they're conducting containment operations to prevent technological contamination. Dr. Hartley pulled up a holographic display showing the tactical situation. It's not just the Caesarians. 3 other major civilizations have joined what they're calling the Stability Coalition. They argue that human technological integration capabilities represent an existential threat to galactic order. But other species are supporting humanity? Marcus asked, noting the defensive formations protecting the station. 5 civilizations have declared for the Cooperation Alliance, Commander Chen confirmed. The Crystalline Confederacy, the Bio-Collective, the Independent Worlds Federation, the Voltharian Harmony, and, surprisingly, the Quantum Collective. They believe human capabilities could benefit all of galactic civilization. Marcus studied the battle display, trying to understand the scope of what was unfolding. Hundreds of warships from a dozen different species were engaged in combat across multiple star systems. Trade routes had been severed. Diplomatic relationships that had existed for millennia were collapsing. The galaxy was tearing itself apart over the question of humanity's place in the cosmic order. "This is my fault," Marcus said quietly. "If I hadn't demonstrated the integration protocols, none of this would have happened." "No," came a harmonic voice from across the command center. Marcus turned to see Saitakura, the Veltharian chief engineer, approaching in her floating crystalline formation. The conflict was inevitable once human capabilities became known. "Your demonstration merely accelerated the timeline." The Corvani military advisor, Thexvor, clicked its agreement. Caesarian intelligence had already identified human adaptability as potential strategic advantage. Attack protocols were being developed regardless of yesterday's events. Marcus realized he was looking at something unprecedented. Alien species working directly with humans in a command structure, sharing intelligence and coordinating strategy. The crisis had forced the kind of cooperation that he had only theorized about. But the cooperation came at a terrible price. The holographic display showed casualty reports streaming in from human colonies under attack. Millions of people were dying because Marcus had revealed humanity's hidden potential. "What's the strategic situation?" Marcus asked, forcing himself to focus on the immediate crisis rather than the guilt threatening to overwhelm him. Ambassador Kethmol of the Bio Collective, speaking through one of her secondary drones, provided the analysis. Caesarian forces possess superior firepower and established tactical doctrines. Cooperation Alliance forces demonstrate technological diversity, but lack coordination protocols. Current trajectory indicates Stability Coalition victory within 72 standard hours. The prognosis was stark. The civilizations supporting humanity were powerful, but they couldn't work together effectively. Each species fought using their own tactics, communicated through their own systems, and operated according to their own strategic doctrines. The Stability Coalition, led by the Caesarians' military expertise, was systematically defeating Alliance forces by concentrating firepower against isolated enemy fleets. We need the same kind of integration protocols for military coordination that we created for the station's technical systems, Marcus realized. The Alliance species can't fight effectively together because their technologies and tactics are incompatible. Commander Chen nodded grimly. That's exactly what we need, but it would require someone who understands all the different species' military capabilities and can create interfaces between their command and control systems. How long would that take? Marcus asked. Months, maybe years, Dr. Hartley replied. Military systems are far more complex than civilian technology, and the security requirements alone would— No, Marcus interrupted, his mind already racing through the possibilities. Not months. Hours. I've been working with these species technologies for weeks. I understand how they think, how their systems operate, how to translate between their different approaches. Scythecara's harmonic frequencies shifted to indicate intense interest. Human Marcus Chun proposes creation of real-time military integration protocols. More than that, Marcus said, pulling up the station's communication arrays on his personal device. I propose creation of a unified command structure that allows all Alliance species to fight as a single coordinated force. Thexvor's pheromone release translated as extreme skepticism. Such integration has never been achieved in galactic military history. Species-specific tactical doctrines are incompatible at fundamental levels. Marcus was already beginning to understand the scope of the challenge. The Corvani fought like a living organism, with individual units serving specific functions in a larger biological system. The Valetharians conducted warfare as harmonic symphony, timing their attacks to create resonant effects that amplified their firepower. The Bio-Collective operated as a hive mind, coordinating thousands of units through shared consciousness. The Crystalline Confederacy treated battle as geometric optimization, positioning their forces to maximize crystalline technology effects. The Quantum Collective manipulated probability itself, making their enemies' weapons less likely to hit while making their own shots more accurate. Each approach was incredibly effective within its own parameters, but they were completely incompatible with each other. Trying to coordinate them would be like conducting an orchestra where each section was playing different music in different keys at different tempos. I need direct access to all Alliance command systems, Marcus said, and I need the authority to implement integration protocols without going through standard approval processes. Commander Chun stared at him. Marcus, you're asking for command authority over the largest military alliance in galactic history. You're a maintenance worker with no military training or strategic experience. I'm a human who can make incompatible systems work together, Marcus replied. Right now, that's exactly what the Alliance needs. The alien representatives exchange communications in their various languages. Marcus could sense intense debate and calculation as each species considered the unprecedented step of placing a human in a position of tactical authority. It was Veltar of the Quantum Collective who finally responded, its energy patterns flickering with probability assessments. Human Marcus Chun represents optimal probability pathway for Alliance coordination success. Authorization recommended. Ambassador Kethmol's drone bodies nodded in unison. Biocollective Conquers. Human integration capabilities supersede traditional command structure requirements. Scythecara's harmonics translated as reluctant agreement. Valetharian harmony accepts human coordination authority under emergency protocols. Even Thexvor, despite its earlier skepticism, clicked its consent. Corvani forces will accept human tactical integration if results demonstrate effectiveness. Marcus found himself appointed as the first human to command an interstellar military alliance, with authority over technologies he barely understood and species whose military traditions span millennia. He had 6 hours to create a miracle. Marcus set up his command station in the center of the emergency command center, surrounded by interface terminals connecting to each Alliance species command networks. The amount of information flowing through the systems was overwhelming. Tactical displays, unit positions, supply logistics, damage reports, communication intercepts, and strategic assessment from 5 different civilizations. But instead of trying to understand all the information, Marcus focused on understanding the patterns underlying each species' approach to warfare. The Corvani divided their forces into specialized functional units: scouts, warriors, defenders, and support elements. Each unit served a specific biological function in a larger military organism. Marcus created integration protocols that allowed other species to interface with Corvani command structures by translating their capabilities into equivalent biological functions. The Veltharian strategy was based on harmonic resonance, timing attacks to create cumulative effects that were greater than the sum of individual strikes. Marcus developed synchronization systems that allowed non-harmonic species to coordinate their attacks with Veltharian timing patterns. The Biocollective's strength lay in their ability to coordinate vast numbers of units through shared consciousness. Marcus created distributed command protocols that allowed other species to tap into the collective's coordination abilities while maintaining their individual decision-making autonomy. The Crystalline Confederacy fought by optimizing geometric relationships between their forces, positioning units to maximize their crystalline technology's effectiveness. Marcus designed positioning algorithms that helped other species understand optimal formation arrangements. The Quantum Collective manipulated probability to improve their tactical effectiveness, essentially cheating reality to achieve better outcomes. Marcus created probability interfaces that allowed other species to benefit from quantum manipulation without understanding its underlying principles. The most challenging aspect wasn't the technical integration, it was the psychological and cultural integration. Each species had fundamental assumptions about how warfare should be conducted, what constituted proper tactics, and how military hierarchies should function. The Corvani believed in biological efficiency and specialized roles. The Veltharians valued harmonic cooperation and elegant coordination. The Biocollective prioritized collective optimization over individual glory. The Crystalline Confederacy emphasized mathematical precision and geometric perfection. The Quantum Collective thought in terms of probability optimization and reality manipulation. Marcus had to create command structures that honored each species' military values while allowing them to work together effectively. As he worked, reports continued flooding in from the battle zones. Alliance forces were taking heavy losses as Caesarian fleets systematically destroyed isolated units. Human colonies were falling one by one as their defenders were overwhelmed by superior firepower and coordination. Marcus uploaded his first integration protocols 3 hours into the crisis. The effects were immediate and dramatic. Alliance fleets that had been fighting as separate units suddenly began coordinating their attacks with unprecedented precision. Corvani biological units provided scouting and infiltration capabilities that fed directly into Veltharian harmonic bombardment patterns. Biocollective swarm tactics created openings that Crystalline Confederacy geometric formations exploited with mathematical precision. Quantum collective probability manipulation ensured that coordinated attacks achieved maximum effectiveness. For the first time since the conflict began, Alliance forces weren't just defending, they were winning. The Caesarian response was swift and brutal. Recognizing that Alliance coordination represented an existential threat to their military superiority, they concentrated their entire fleet for a decisive strike on Zephyria Station itself. Marcus watched the tactical displays as hundreds of Caesarian warships converged on their position. The station's defenses were formidable, but they were designed to repel raiders and pirates, not an armada of military vessels equipped with planet-killing weaponry. They're going to destroy the station to eliminate you and the integration protocols Commander Chen realized. If you're killed and your knowledge is lost, the Alliance coordination will collapse. Marcus stared at the approaching Caesarian fleet. Each ship was massive, bristling with weapons that could reduce the station to atoms. The Alliance had committed most of their forces to defending human colonies, leaving Zephyria protected by only a small garrison fleet. But, as he watched the tactical situation develop, Marcus began to see an opportunity that none of the traditional military strategists had recognized. "What if we don't try to fight them?" Marcus said suddenly. Commander Chen looked at him in confusion. "Marcus, they're coming to kill us. Fighting is pretty much our only option." "No, I mean, what if we don't fight them the way they expect to be fought? Every battle in this conflict has been fleet against fleet, firepower against firepower. But what if we use the Alliance's technological diversity to fight an entirely different kind of battle?" Marcus began implementing new integration protocols, but these weren't for coordinating attacks. They were for coordinating something that had never been attempted in galactic military history, a defensive strategy that turned the station itself into the weapon. As the Caesarian fleet closed in for their final assault, Marcus prepared to demonstrate that the worst worker in the galaxy had become something far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. A human who could think beyond the limitations of traditional warfare. The real battle was about to begin. The Caesarian fleet filled the viewports like an approaching storm of death and metal. Over 300 warships, each one larger than most space stations, bristling with weaponry that could crack planets. Admiral Krekthul himself commanded the flagship, a massive dreadnought that had never lost a battle in 40 years of galactic warfare. Marcus stood in the emergency command center, surrounded by displays showing impossible odds. The station's garrison fleet consisted of exactly 17 ships, and while they represented 5 different Alliance species with diverse capabilities, they were outnumbered more than 17 to 1 by forces that had just conquered a dozen human colonies. Final message from Admiral Krekthul, Commander Chun reported grimly. "They're demanding immediate surrender of all human personnel and complete access to your integration protocols. If we refuse, they'll destroy the station with all aboard." Marcus didn't respond immediately. He was studying something that everyone else had missed, the technical specifications of Zephyria Station itself. The station wasn't just a diplomatic facility. It was a technological marvel that had been built by combining the engineering expertise of every major galactic civilization. Its systems were already designed to integrate incompatible technologies, just like the protocols he had been developing. "How long until the Caesarian fleet reaches firing range?" Marcus asked. 18 minutes. Thexvor replied, its pheromone releases indicating resignation to honorable death. "That's enough time," Marcus said, his fingers flying over the command interfaces. "Enough time for what?" Dr. Hartley asked. "To turn the station into something the Caesarians have never faced before." Marcus began uploading integration protocols directly into Zephyria Station's core systems. But these weren't the simple translation layers he had created before. These were transformation protocols that would fundamentally alter how the station operated. "Marcus, what are you doing?" Commander Chen demanded. "You're accessing systems that could destabilize the entire structure." "I'm optimizing the station for its new purpose," Marcus replied. Zephyria wasn't built to be a weapon, but it has capabilities that no military vessel in the galaxy possesses. He pulled up the station's technical schematics on the main display, highlighting systems that most people never thought about. "Look at this. We have Corvani biological adaptation systems that can evolve countermeasures in real time. Veltharian harmonic resonance generators that can create interference patterns across entire star systems. Zephite pressure manipulation technology that can affect space-time curvature. Biocollective coordination matrices that can control thousands of automated systems simultaneously. Crystalline confederacy geometric optimization arrays that can calculate perfect defensive positions. And quantum collective probability manipulation systems that can make enemy weapons less likely to hit their targets." Scythecara's harmonic frequencies shifted to indicate understanding. Human Marcus Chun proposes integration of station defensive capabilities beyond original design parameters. More than that, Marcus said, I'm proposing we become something that has never existed before, a fortress that adapts, evolves, and fights back using principles that the Caesarians can't understand because they've never encountered them in combination. The alien representatives exchanged rapid communications as they realized what Marcus was suggesting. Instead of trying to fight a traditional battle against impossible odds, he wanted to transform the station into an entirely new form of defensive system that operated according to principles no military force in the galaxy had ever faced. Implementation will require complete integration of all station systems under unified command protocols, Veltar observed, its energy patterns flickering with probability calculations. Risk of catastrophic failure remains significant. The risk of not trying is certain death, Marcus replied. At least this way, we might surprise them. He began implementing the integration protocols, working faster than he had ever worked before. Every system on the station had to be connected to every other system in ways that the original designers had never intended. The biological networks had to interface with harmonic resonance generators. The pressure manipulation systems had to coordinate with probability matrices. The coordination systems had to control geometric optimization arrays. It was like conducting a symphony where every instrument was playing a different song, while simultaneously rebuilding each instrument to produce sounds it had never been designed to make. As Marcus worked, the Caesarian fleet continued its approach. Long-range scanners showed them forming standard attack formations, preparing to overwhelm the station's defenses through concentrated firepower. Admiral Krekthal was using the same tactics that had conquered human colonies across the sector. But Zephyria Station was beginning to change in ways that the Caesarians couldn't detect. The Corvani biological systems started adapting the station's hull configuration, growing new defensive structures that resembled living armor. The Veltharian harmonic generators began creating resonance patterns that would interfere with Caesarian targeting systems. The Zephite pressure manipulators started affecting local space-time, creating gravitational anomalies that would disrupt enemy flight paths. The biocollective coordination matrices took control of thousands of maintenance drones, transforming them into defensive swarms. The crystalline confederacy arrays calculated optimal positioning for every defensive system on the station. And the quantum collective probability manipulators began influencing reality itself to improve the station's defensive effectiveness. 10 minutes to weapons range, Commander Chen announced. Marcus uploaded the final integration protocols and activated the unified command system. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, every screen in the command center flickered as the station's computer systems merged into something that had never existed before, a hybrid intelligence that combined the best capabilities of every species represented on the station. Integration complete, Marcus announced. Station defensive systems now operating under unified adaptive protocols. The transformation was immediately visible through the viewports. The station's hull was shifting and growing, developing new configurations that resembled a living organism more than a mechanical structure. Energy patterns flowed across its surface as harmonic generators created interference fields. Space itself seemed to bend around the station as gravitational manipulators altered local physics. Swarms of maintenance drones had transformed into defensive units that moved in patterns too complex for individual minds to comprehend. Admiral Krechthal's response came through the communication arrays. Unknown technological configuration detected. Recommend immediate withdrawal for tactical assessment. But the Caesarian fleet was too committed to retreat now. They had staked their entire campaign on destroying Zephyria Station and eliminating the human technological threat. Withdrawal would mean admitting that humans possess capabilities that the Caesarian military couldn't overcome. All vessels, commence bombardment. Target the station's central core, Admiral Krekthal commanded. The Caesarian attack was devastating. 300 warships opened fire simultaneously, unleashing enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Energy beams, projectile weapons, and Exotic matter disruptors converged on the station from every direction. But Zephyria Station was no longer the same structure they had planned to attack. The Corvani biological systems adapted the whole configuration in real time, growing new armor plating exactly where weapons were about to strike. The Veltharian harmonic generators created interference patterns that deflected energy beams and disrupted targeting systems. The Zephite gravitational manipulators bent space around the station, causing many shots to miss entirely. The biocollective coordination systems controlled thousands of defensive drones that intercepted incoming projectiles. The crystalline arrays calculated optimal angles for every defensive system, creating geometric shields that channeled attacks away from critical areas. And the quantum probability manipulators made enemy weapons statistically less likely to hit, while making the station's defenses more effective. The result was unprecedented in galactic military history. Despite being attacked by over 300 warships simultaneously, Zephyria Station not only survived the bombardment, it began fighting back. The integrated defensive systems didn't just protect the station. They turned every attack into a tactical advantage. Energy absorbed by the harmonic generators was converted into more powerful interference patterns. Gravitational disturbances created by near misses were redirected into weapons that pulled enemy ships off course. Biological systems analyzed the composition of enemy weapons and evolved countermeasures faster than the Caesarians could adapt their tactics. Impossible, Admiral Crétul transmitted. No defensive system can withstand concentrated fleet bombardment. Admiral, Marcus responded through the station's communication arrays. You're not fighting a defensive system. You're fighting a new form of intelligence that adapts faster than you can attack it. The Caesarian fleet tried every tactic in their military doctrine. They concentrated fire on individual sections, only to watch the station's biological systems regenerate damage faster than they could inflict it. They attempted to overload the harmonic generators, only to find that the excess energy was being converted into more powerful defensive capabilities. They tried to disrupt the gravitational fields, only to discover that the disturbances were being used to create new tactical advantages. For the first time in Caesarian military history, they were facing an opponent that became stronger with every attack.